Now, some residents in Midrand are still experiencing water shortages. They say they've had no water for nearly 2 weeks now. Our reporter Heidi Giokos has been talking to residents today, and she joins us now live in studio. Heidi, we did hear from both Rand Water and even Joburg Water about the situation on the ground in Johannesburg. They saying that everything should be sorted by now, but you found a different story?
Yes, so Joburg Water did indicate, Masego, that by mid this week, areas that are still without water, for example, Midrand, will be sorted out by midweek. But residents are still, of course, really angry and frustrated. They haven't had water for about 5 to 8 days in the Midrand area. Some areas have been restored, while other areas have not been restored. And what residents have been communicating is that there's been a lack of communication in terms of what the actual problem is and when water is actually going to be restored. This is what residents have been communicating in terms of the actual communication from these various bodies about what the actual problem is. We've also been told by residents and community members that, for example, pupils can't go to school because they haven't had water for 5 to 8 days. We also know that the police station was also closed for some time because there's been no water. I also saw something on Twitter that, for example, the post office was also closed for some time because of no water. So it really affects absolutely everybody. I think what's imperative here is that Rand Water did say to us on Saturday night on eNCA that in actual fact they are pumping more than the actual requirements because of the increased demand. So they are going above and beyond their actual capacity to provide for the demand that is needed, given that Joburg Water has said due to the Zekerbosch water treatment plant that was affected on Tuesday, and because there's a very high demand of water, there have been some issues. But Rand Water saying it's all systems go and it's up to the municipalities and Joburg Water to essentially get water to residents. Let's perhaps listen to what some residents had to say about how difficult and frustrating it's been.
We've been without water for about 5 days. The difficulty is that I think the biggest problem is information. Nobody is telling us when will the water be cut off, when will the water be back. And the other difficulty is children going to school without any water.
Well, it's affecting me in such a way I can't go and carry a water tank. It's very heavy, not at my age anyway, and my back problem. Other than that, I don't think it's right that we are without water. We should actually have had that sorted out. But the messages, as was said earlier on, coming through was just garble, because you didn't know from one day to the next when was the water going to come back.
We all have been struggling without water. I haven't had water for 5 days. He's my neighbor, so it was the same situation. Yeah. And my kids couldn't go to school. I've got one in primary, one in high school, and right now this is the middle of assessments. And if they can't go to school, when are they going to do the assessments? Where they're going to be closing next week on Friday. So it's going to be very tight for schools now to go back and administer assessments to learners. It affects preparations. Our routines have been disrupted.
No, it's difficult because we didn't have water for 5 days. No bathing, no doing washings, no cooking, no dishes, and the school children, they don't have water to bath. So it's difficult for us.
It's like you can't even do any your daily routines, or you can't cook your food, and that is the main thing. Like a few residents have dogs, and it's not only humans. Somebody have a pets, and they can't look after their pets because they can't give them water or anything. It's very frustrating. If you don't have one day for it's manageable.
And Heidi, have you heard anything from Rand Water or Joburg Water about the situation in Midrand?
Yes, so there's constant updates on Joburg Water's Twitter page, and they are, of course, trying to deal with the problem. But, as I've mentioned before, Masego, that there is a very high demand, according to Joburg Water, and the challenge here is that it takes a while for reservoirs to fill up, and because of what happened at the Zekerbosch water treatment plant on Tuesday, it's obviously affected certain reservoirs, and that's obviously caused a bit of a delay. It's not like, for example, with electricity, I wish it was that simple. Just, when you switch the power back on, the power's back on. With water, you actually have to fill up the reservoirs, and that takes some time. And that's why certain areas in Midrand have been able to access water, where others are getting water but at a very low pressure. So it does seem, though, that most areas have been restored, but it is obviously taking some time and causing huge frustration from residents, as you can hear.